purpose of this video is to give a brief introduction to Google applications, specifically as how they can be applied to growing our relationship with God. Once you go to Google, if you do not have a Google account, then simply just type in create Google account and it will bring up some links, and these links will guide you through the place and process for creating an account. Once you do have an account, then when you go to Google, you can just sign in the top right hand corner, and you can begin to customize your settings and make use of all of the applications that you will see listed across the top. Notice all these different applications, and when you click on more, there's a lot more applications. So today we're going to take a brief tour through some of the applications and how they can be very useful. I'd like to start with Google Calendars. If you click on more, somewhere along here, depending on how often you use the apps, you will find links to these popular applications. And here's the calendar app, which I already have open here. This is my calendar, and it looks very busy, but today I just want to demonstrate a few ways that using a calendar like this can really help streamline your time and your tasks and what you do from the beginning of your day through the end. An important thing is to be in the right place at the right time to receive God's blessings for our life. And to do this, it begins with mapping out what our day is like. And as we go along, we'll find ways to make our days more efficient and put ourselves in the right place. So you begin by going in, create yourself a calendar, and start putting in your routine. Specifically, there's a couple of features in Google Calendars that I want to make note of. If you go over to the top right corner, you'll see this little wheel. In any of your applications, this is where you can go in and set your options. You go into your options, you can go into your calendar settings, and across here you can just play with the different settings. I want to make mention of the mobile setup because this is a really neat feature. If you have a smartphone like a Droid or an iPhone, it's very handy to go in and set up your phone number so that it can text to you at the right time the things that are on your calendar. This will help you stay on task and help you to remember what you should be doing. In addition, if you click on the Labs feature, you can go down and enable the different features that are very valuable. One particular one I want to point out is event attachments. If you enable this, it will allow you to link to your calendar events, Google Documents, and more. And they will be very important, as I will demonstrate. Once you've gone down and enabled the things you like, just hit the Save button. Now going back to the calendar, you'll see that I've put in the different routines, and you can set them up to recur. You can put in custom alarms. You can have it email yourself. Basically, when you click on one, you can edit it, and you can put in all the different details that you want. And down here, you can add different types of reminders. Now, one thing I want to point out is that when you're going through and lining up your day, there will be certain things that you want to have more information on. But instead of putting a bunch of details down here in the description, you can just link it right to an attachment. This brings us to the second application that I wanted to focus on, and that is Google Documents. You can see here I've attached a Google document. So now we're going to go up to, and I'm going to hit click on the plus for a new tab, and then these are all my little shortcuts that I like to use. Most of these are Google applications. We'll go to Documents. In the Documents area, you can see a list of all of my Google documents, and here is where you just go in and you can create yourself a document and you can share it. For example, this one, I'm going to actually go back to my and show how this flows. This is my morning routine, which is from 6:50 a.m. to 7:20, and here is the document that is attached. From the Google Documents area, there are all these documents, and so I have attached one. So go back and say, well, what about my morning routine do I need to remember? If I click on this, it will open up in a new tab this document where it has all the details. And here's what I do throughout the day. Notice that in this part of the day, I begin my meeting with God at a strategic time. So I can click right here from this and get to my meeting with God. From here, there are different documents that are very valuable that help me. Again, we're transitioning from the Google calendars to the time of day when I use Google document. In this document, the meeting with God, I list all the different things that are useful to help me in my time with God. The first one is Scripture. So I can click on these different documents here and review my Scripture for the day. So I'll click right here. This particular document is Scripture shorthand, in which I have the first initial of each word in the Scripture. For example, this one is from Chronicles, and it's about territory or possessions, and this is the actual Scripture, and it begins, Jabez called on the God of Israel, and so forth. But if I can't remember the actual Scripture from just looking at the first letter of each word, I can drill down to the actual document that has all of the Scripture in it. And so here you can see the full Scripture. Jabez called on the God of Israel, etc., etc., etc. So this is an example of how we transition from a Google Calendar event to a Google document, which leads to more and more documents. That's the basic way that these Google apps can help us get organized and lead us from tasks and events of our day to information that we want to make sure is going through our minds in order to be in the right place at the right time to receive God's perfect blessings for our life. Now I'm going to close out some of these documents. And get back to the meeting. If I go back to my Google Calendar and go back to the full thing, you see the morning routine and get my kids off to school, and then here the meeting with God continues. So that's worth looking at. We go to the event and we can see the attachment Steve and God, which basically opens me back up to where I was. Whereas the first part of the day, whenever I am doing my morning routine, there's a brief period where I can start my devotion with God, and I can begin by looking at Scripture and memorizing Scripture and so forth. Then, a little later on, after I get my kids to school, I can dive in a little deeper and go back to the area. And after the Scripture, these are some other things that you can do with Google Documents. You can have a journal where you post things that happen to you through the day. You can create yourself a website where you can post things about yourself to others. So let's briefly look at this right here is going to take us to another tab, which takes us to another one of Google's applications that I wanted to discuss briefly, and that is Google Sites. All these applications across, if you just look, you will see somewhere along here the word Sites, which is right here. And from there, you can create yourself a website where you can begin to put all kinds of things that you want to share with others. So now we've gone from tasks and events and calendars to documents for information. And then from all this and from your journals, there will eventually you can develop yourself a website that you can share with others. When you go to Google Sites, you can create yourself a site, and then it's pretty simple. You just have to go in and work with it, and you can begin to present different things. For example, these are some different journal entries from my journal that I actually wanted to share publicly with others. And sometimes, if they're really good, I'll email them out to different people using Gmail, another one of Google's applications. So if you get a chance and want to take a look at this site, you can get ideas for things that you can do to create your site. So now we've talked about calendars and documents and Google Sites. Now also, instead of, not only can you have a public site where you can share things with other people, but you can use one of Google's one of their newest applications, which is called Google Plus. And Google Plus, which I've got a shortcut to right here, or here. When you go to that, you can create a social network. It's very similar to Facebook, but the difference is that this is really neat for small groups, for sharing with circles. You just go in here and you can begin using Google Plus to create different circles. I'm going to go to the Circles button, and here you can see all these different people that I know, and I can just drag them into different circles depending on what I want to share and what the topics might be. For example, one of the biggest uses is this circle is Spiritual 4, and in this circle are friends of mine who I know I can share pretty much anything spiritual with. And there are things that I will pull from my journal that perhaps I don't want to put on my site publicly for everyone to see, but perhaps they're experiences that I just want to share with a few people that would really want to hear about them or understand them. This is also a really powerful tool for accountability. I know many churches, most churches, see the value and preach the value of having accountability in small groups. The beauty of this particular application is that you can just put in the people that you want to be in your circle. So, for example, some of these people that are in this circle may not want to be in the same circle with these other people. Well, when you meet in small groups in a church setting, pretty much everyone has to agree on the members of the group. But here, you don't have to do that. I can have my members of this group, and they can join my circle, but they can also have their own circles where they share in accountability. The value of this, of course, is that when you get together in fellowship, you have all different levels of fellowship and how deep you want to go and how much you want to talk and express to different people. And this is an incredible thing. If a lot of people would join in working with this, then we could do what is really incredible about Google is that, one, it's free, and two, it's always so easy to collaborate with other people. You can share all of these things, whether it be your calendar events. You can share them with other people who have Google accounts. You can share your documents so that you can collaborate with other people on different things. And you can share your website to the level that you want to share it, and you can share in different circles. So basically, Google is a way to communicate information and collaborate with others. And I find it extremely valuable tool, so valuable for spiritual growth that I wanted to make this short beginner presentation of how to use Google applications to enhance your relationship with God. There are many, many other features, many other applications. There's, of course, Mail, Gmail, which we all are familiar with. But we have photos if you want to share photo albums. And there's just so many other things that can be done. And videos. YouTube, obviously. We know about YouTube. So I highly encourage people, if you don't already know how to do this, to get in there and encourage people to share with each other. And this wraps up my short presentation, and I will make other presentations to elaborate more on each thing and strategically how to use it.